What is going on, everybody? Shwayze here. In today's video, we're going to discuss over 25 cool, fun, and interesting features about the 2024 Mercedes Benz AMG GLE 63S. Okay, so if you haven't checked out my full-length comprehensive car review of the GLE 63, I do recommend you check that out for all the nitty-gritty details. But in today's video, we're serving quite a different purpose because we're just talking about some of the cool things. These are the type of features that will make you say, oh wow, or show off some party tricks to your friends and family. So without further ado, let's get started. So in no particular order, I do want to start with the powertrain. Now, first off, forgive me for how dirty this car is. I've actually washed this car 3 times in the week that I've had it, and it's rained every single day. So I've kind of had enough of it, so that's why it's a little bit dirty, so I apologize for that. But talking about the powertrain, this is a hand-built 4-liter twin-turbo V8. You can actually see the name of the individual that built this car in Germany. And the amazing thing about this powertrain is when everybody else is shying away from big V8 engines, Mercedes just doubled down on it. I mean, we're talking 603 horsepower, 627 pound-feet of torque. This giant mid-size SUV will do 0 to 60 in just 3.7 seconds. I mean, let's take a pause and think about those numbers real quick, because it wasn't too long ago that Ferraris and Lamborghinis were hitting those horsepower and acceleration figures, and here we have that in a full-size SUV with tons of creature comforts inside. You don't have to get into a low-slung sports car anymore. It's truly amazing. Now, the other amazing part about that is the integrated starter motor, or the EQ boost technology that Mercedes integrates into a lot of their engines, including this GLE 63S. And what that is it's essentially a small battery pack paired with an integrated starter motor, and it's essentially a mild hybrid system where the hybrid technology will actually assist in running the accessory units like the air conditioning, the water pump, as well as the internal electronics, and help with fuel efficiency while at the same time providing a little bit of boost when you're accelerating. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. You're merging internal combustion engine, kind of the old school technology, with the EV powertrain of the new school technology, and getting pretty decent fuel efficiency and really great horsepower figures. Now, speaking of fuel economy, you'd think it'd actually be worse than it is. It's 15 in the city and 20 on the highway, so not bad overall. Now, I should say this is a 9-speed automatic transmission, and you do get all-wheel drive as standard. So pretty good figures for a 4-liter twin-turbo V8 engine. Okay, now doubling down on performance, let's talk about the brakes. These are the upgraded carbon ceramic brakes that you can get as an option on the GLE 63, which this vehicle in front of me does happen to have. And I do want to point out some pretty cool specs on this. We're talking about a 6-piston, 16.5-inch brake caliper. I mean, take a look at how massive this is. It may not look as big because these are 22-inch wheels, but these are probably some of the largest front rotors and brake calipers I've seen. I mean, maybe the next closest thing is something off like the Lamborghini Urus. Definitely plenty of stopping power, actually to the point where it's almost a little bit too aggressive. Personally, I'd probably prefer just standard Brembos or something a little bit more normal than these carbon ceramic brakes for the front, but they are very massive and they work extremely well, especially if you're doing some high-speed driving. Now, the next feature I want to discuss is the adjustable air suspension on the GLE. Now, depending on which drive mode you choose, the vehicle will automatically raise and lower the suspension. But let's say you're going to go over a large bump and you want to make sure you raise the suspension. Well, by flipping up on this little toggle switch, the suspension will automatically raise the vehicle, and actually will tell you on the screen that it is raising the car. But let's say you want to get into a sporty mode, and instead of actually switching the drive modes on the steering wheel, you can actually lower the suspension, and again, the vehicle will tell you on the screen that it is lowering. But let me show you some footage from the outside showing you exactly how much this thing raises and lowers. Now, as you can see, that's actually quite a bit of lift over just the standard riding stance of this vehicle. I mean, that's definitely something you could off-road in. Not that I would say you should off-road this $120,000 vehicle. Now, going off the theme of the adjustable air suspension, let's say you're trying to load something in the back, but you've got it raised all the way to its maximum height. Well, all you have to do is actually just push on this button, and the vehicle will automatically lower. You might be able to hear it, but the air compressor's going and the vehicle's actually lowering, and looks like it is done. Now you can load heavy objects into the back, saving a few extra inches of height. And then when you're done, as you can see, the light is actually still on. When you're done, you can pull back on the lever and it will automatically raise the vehicle back up to its setting that was set inside of the car. So that's a pretty cool feature and just a nice added touch when you have an adjustable air suspension. Now, the next feature I have to talk about is the 360-degree camera. So by pushing this button on the center arm console, it will pull up this 360 camera. Now, this isn't just your regular type of 360 camera that you find on every other car, which is pretty much this image right here. This is essentially a 3D flying drone image where you can actually look around you. I mean, this is exactly where I'm at. I mean, there's a column that ends right here. There's a huge parking lot down there, and you can even capture the detail of that parking lot all the way down in the distance. I honestly don't know how they do it. It's just some really crazy software, but the fact that they can get my exact location, everything from what's going on the ground, including the lighting. I mean, this is a really advanced 360-degree system, and I know a lot of German vehicles are using it, and it still just amazes me to this day to be able to see this in a vehicle. I mean, this is like a video game. It's truly insane. And of course, you do have lots of different quick access buttons over here to go to particular cameras that you want to use. But you know, take a look at that. It's just like showing you the different angles. I mean, now you're just showing off at this point. Now, one fun feature I want to show off about the 360-degree camera is, as you can see, there's actually no camera located back here. There's a little light that shines on the license plate on the left and the right-hand side, and then there's the trunk release button, but there's not really a rear view camera. So where could they have hid the rear view camera? Well, there it is. All of a sudden, it popped out of the trunk. Let me show you what that looks like one more time. Now, for the next feature, I want to talk about some of the climate settings. So by pushing this quick access menu on the center arm console, you'll pull up your typical climate controls. Now, you can actually manipulate this entire screen using the buttons over here so that you do have physical redundancy over here, and you can manipulate the second row of seats. Now, the feature I want to talk about has to do with this air quality tab. Now, take a look at what it's showing me. It's showing the exterior air quality, which is good, and the interior air quality. Well, earlier today when I was driving, this vehicle was actually showing me that the exterior air quality was closer to like 20. What I want to point out is the fact that the interior was still showing 1 and the air quality as good. So what this vehicle was doing, and I'm going to try to throw up this footage on the screen right now, was essentially filtering out the nasty air particulates that were going on around me because it was a very windy day today and there was just a bunch of crap and dust flying through the air, and this vehicle was actively cleaning out that exterior air just like it's showing on the screen. It's like a shield, and the interior air was still really nice. So this is a really good feature for anybody who has a really sensitive lungs. This thing will actually clean out the air and make the interior cabin perfectly suitable for everyday driving. Now, if for some reason you don't want the vehicle to purify the air, you can just hit this ionization button off and then it won't actually purify anything. But I don't know why anybody would have it off. I say just keep it on all the time. Now, you'll notice next to it, there's something called the fragrance button, right? And if you click on it, there's different levels just like you would see with heated seats. Well, what that does is this thing will actually pump whatever fragrance you plug into the glove compartment. Right there, as you can see, there's a little vial of liquid, and you can actually see it kind of moving. You can see that the vehicle is actually sucking out this vial of liquid and it's pumping it through all of the air vents inside of the cabin. Now, this is a standard feature for the GLE 63S, but you can get it equipped on other GLE models. And it's not a super strong scent. Like, it's not a heavy perfume that's gonna, stick to your clothes and you're gonna smell it all day. Now, Mercedes says that they make it such a small particulate that you definitely smell it when you're in the cabin. It's just a nice fragrance, but it's not overpowering by any means. I mean, it's probably like the weakest cologne I've ever smelled, but it is just a really nice touch. It's just kind of like a whiff of fresh air. Especially if somebody in the car is smelly, then, well, you can kind of block out some of that scent by using the air fragrance feature. Now, I do also want to show off this steering wheel. Now, this has been updated for the 2024 model year, but it is a steering wheel that has been used on other Mercedes products. Now, what's interesting about the steering wheel is there's not really any set of physical buttons on this wheel. So on the left-hand side, you'll see there's a bunch of different, what looks to be buttons, but they're all haptic feedback control. So what the left-hand side does is it controls this large center display, the instrument gauge cluster. Now I have all the lights on right now because I'm on in accessory mode. I don't have the vehicle on, but I do want to show off all of the functionality. So by clicking the home button on this haptic touchscreen control, you'll actually pull up the different menus where you can select different themes for your instrument gauge cluster. So by simply swiping to the left, I'm going to open up this Super Sport menu, and this has kind of a cool looking instrument gauge cluster where it shows you your G-forces and all the different features. But you can cycle through tons of different ones. There's the sport one that I had earlier. There's this classic theme, which is of course just kind of your traditional gauge cluster. But what I will say is it actually also changes the theme colors of this infotainment screen. So take a look as I transition into the sport mode. This thing will actually change the color background of the infotainment screen. So it changes the themes of this car. So there's tons of different themes here. I like this understated, which kind of just looks like just these floating gauges, a nice purple background. And then you can go through your navigation menu, which is a pretty robust navigation system. Now you can pull up this navigation menu in a smaller form in some of the other gauges, but if you just want the entire gauge cluster to show you your navigation, you can do that. And you can simply zoom in and out by swiping up and down on this touchscreen display on the steering wheel. Now, there's also something called assistance, which just kind of shows you where you are. If there's a vehicle in front of you, it'll show you that as well. And then you can swipe over to your off-road mode, and that one, you know, shows you all the pitch and roll and all the angles that you need to worry about if you're going off-roading. And then finally, there's just your service menu, which kind of shows you your trip odometer, your engine oil, your PSI, so all the details you may want to know if you want to take this vehicle in for service. Now, next up, I want to talk about the heads-up display on this vehicle, which is a really robust heads-up display. Now, right now I have it in this type of setting. It's kind of the sport mode where it shows you, you know, your speed limit, your current speed, your cruise control functions, and your RPM. But similar fashion to this instrument gauge cluster, you can actually push on this button and swipe up and adjust several different types of heads-up displays. So first one is kind of a race mode function, which shows you your RPM front and center. You've got a standard one. This is kind of a more subtle version. You've also got a minimalist version in case you don't want all the clutter on the screen. There's also an off-road version with like this floating compass down in the middle, along with your elevation. Currently, I'm at 4,508 feet. Then you can go through your settings and adjust the brightness and the position, or you can turn it off entirely if it gets in the way. Now, moving further down below that set of controls is just your adaptive cruise control settings, and you can turn that on and off again by pushing this button. On the right-hand side is where you can actually control your center display over here. So by pushing the home button here, it'll actually take you to your home section on the screen. And then by swiping left and right, similar to the other side of the steering wheel, you will actually manipulate this side of the screen. So really cool that you can actually access it without having to take your hands off the steering wheel. Further down here is just your audio settings and then your voice activation on your phone. And then I do want to talk about two particular buttons located down here. Now these are kind of cool. On the right hand side, you've just got a little dial that will go through all the different modes, the driving modes from snow to comfort to sport to race. So that's pretty easy to do. And then you can push on this button and it'll actually open up the sport menus on the infotainment screen. The left-hand side is a little bit more robust. There's actually like two sections of the screen here. Up here, you can cycle through different menus of what you want to do. So for example, if you want to turn off your auto start stop, you navigate to that menu and then you push this little toggle and that will turn off your auto start stop. Same down here. If you want to turn off your traction control or you want to change your suspension into sport mode, you navigate to that menu, click the button, and then you've turned on sport mode. And then you do have some pretty cool paddle shifters here on the left and right. They are made out of aluminum. Now, aside from the steering wheel, like I showed earlier, there is another way to control this screen, and that is, of course, by just using it like a conventional touchscreen. But there is a third way to control the screen, and that is using this little haptic feedback mouse pad. So by simply swiping on this mouse pad, you can pretty much do the exact same thing you would on the steering wheel. So as I'm swiping, you can see I'm actually swiping through the different controls. And there's some quick access buttons over here at the top. So if you want to go forward on your radio stations or back or through the next track, you can just simply swipe forward and back and it will actually change it on the screen. Or you can hit this home button or the back button. But there are also some quick access buttons over here on the right hand side where you can quickly access your navigation, your radio, or your telephone. So lots of redundancy here depending on what your mood is and where you're driving. Okay, now for the next cool feature, I want to talk about something that I've seen in other Mercedes products, but I don't think it's talked about too much. So as you can see, this is the driver's side door panel. And over here, not only do you have these beautiful aluminum bezels, but you do have 3 buttons over here for your heated, ventilated seats. And then there's this button that says R on it. Well, by pushing that button, you can actually control the passenger seat. So for example, let's say you have somebody diagonally behind you. Like let's say you are Uber driving in your Mercedes GLE 63S and you want to move this seat forward, but rather than reaching over and trying to reach this passenger side control, looks kind of goofy. Well, instead you can push that button and actually move your driver's seat controls, and that will actually adjust the passenger seat. So as you can see, it's actually moving the headrest and the seat position of the passenger seat. Now, it goes further than that because not only can you control the seat, you can activate and deactivate the heated and ventilated seats on the passenger side. So while this button is selected, I'm going to hit the heated seats, but as you can see, it didn't turn anything on the driver's side. Well, take a look. It actually turned it on the passenger side. I'm going to push that button again, and you can see I'm actually regulating the passenger side heated and ventilated controls, not by reaching over and trying to tap it, but by just using the controls on the driver's side. Now, speaking of heated seats, let's talk about all the different functionality with that. So if you navigate to your comfort menu and then hit the seat tab, you'll notice down here, heating settings. By pushing this button, you can regulate exactly where you want the heated seat to go. So if you prefer to have it a little bit more on your back, or maybe a little bit more on your butt, or a little bit both, you can actually adjust it however you want to varying degrees. So lots of different options here for people who are very, very particular as to where they want their heated seat functionality. Along the same lines of people who are very particular with their seats, you can actually adjust the side bolsters to your liking. So what that will do is it will actually use the internal airbags inside of the seat to pump out or retract the airbags to give you a tighter or looser seat position. When these bolsters are pumped up to 10, they actually hug you really tight. I'm about 5'9", average diameter, and I feel like I'm in a very sporty seat right now. But if I adjust it down to 0, it actually just feels like any normal seat that I'm sitting in. So it does make a pretty big difference. Now, one of my favorite features of this car has to do with the massaging seats. So again, in your comfort settings, you go to the massage tab and you've got 8 different types of massage functions for the passenger and driver side. Now, my favorite is the classic or the wave massage, but you've got a hot, relaxing back massage. You can just work out the cushion, and it's a pretty robust massaging seat. Like, this isn't just a vibration function that kind of just passes off as a massage seat. This actually has what feels like rollers inside of the seat cushion and the seat back that give you a pretty good deep tissue massage. Now, I think it just uses the lumbar airbags that are located inside of the seat itself to give you that simulated feel, but it works. Now, as all of my old favorite infomercials went, but wait, there's more. There's something called seat kinetics. And what that does is it will actively use the power seat functions on the driver and passenger side to make minute changes over the course of anywhere from 16 to 32 to 96 minutes, a very particular number. What I mean by that is it will adjust the seat so that your muscles don't get tired when you're driving on long road trips. So as you can see, I'm going to turn the driver's side on, and I'm not quite sure if you can see on the screen, but I just noticed a little bit of movement on the seat back when I was sitting here. Same with the seat cushion. So it'll just make these little small movements throughout the drive. I mean, it's not like a roller coaster where it's bouncing you around. It's just subtle little movements to make sure that your legs don't fall asleep, your feet don't fall asleep, just kind of keeps you moving. Now, you thought I was done with seat adjustments, but there's a lumbar adjustment, and we've all seen this in many cars. Even my Ford Bronco has a lumbar adjustment, but I haven't quite seen it to this level. There's an XY graph over here showing you exactly what position you want that lumbar support. Again, for somebody who's very particular with their back issues, if you want to extend it just in the middle section, you can extend it all the way up to 10, or you can move it down. I mean, what other vehicle has an XY graph showing you exactly where that section of lumbar support is located? And you can do the same thing for the passenger side. Now, the last thing I'll talk about in regards to the seats, there is something called automatic seat positioning. And I've seen it on a couple cars, but it's a pretty cool feature. So you put in your height, and then when you hit start positioning, as you can see, it's not only moving the steering wheel, it's moving my seat back, it's lowering my seat cushion. I mean, it really changed up a lot of how I'm sitting. And I can't say I'm super comfortable in this position, but according to Mercedes, this is exactly how I should be sitting. And I believe it, because I probably sit like a brine shrimp when I'm driving, but hey, that's how I feel comfortable. Now, moving further down from the infotainment screen, you'll see this little tab that opens up, and that essentially just opens up your wireless charging pad back here and your cup holders. Now, the next cool feature I want to talk about is the fact that you'll see there's this little button over here that has this little drink. Well, by pushing this button, you can either turn on the cool functionality of this cup holder or the heating functionality of the cup holder. And as you can see, it actually changes colors depending on what option you pick. So a pretty cool feature, and I'm kind of surprised I haven't seen this on a lot more vehicles. Now, the next feature I want to discuss has to do with this Burmester audio system. Now, not only is it beautiful with this aluminum speaker grill, nice texture to it, but it is also a 13 speaker audio system and also comes paired with a 590 watt amplifier. And the sound system is very, very good. Like, everything is very crisp. But the feature I want to talk about is the two subwoofers that are somewhat integrated into the frame of this vehicle. So Mercedes calls it the front bass system. And essentially it used subwoofers underneath this dashboard over here on the driver and passenger side. And it uses the frame to actually resonate the bass throughout the entire vehicle. Now, I'm not a sound engineer. I don't know the exact mechanics of it, but what I will tell you is I can definitely tell as I'm driving down the road that it does feel like a subwoofer is located right in front of me, because the wheel well is constantly vibrating when there's a song with heavy bass. Now, the rear passengers will still feel that because it's attached to the frame, and at the same time, I'm sure it saves on space because you don't have to stick a giant subwoofer under the rear seats or in the trunk. As a matter of fact, underneath the trunk, you have quite a bit of storage space. Let me show you what that looks like. Taking a look underneath the storage of the trunk, you have just a small fix-a-flat kit and even a place where you can put your tonneau cover. But other than that, it's a pretty large storage compartment where you could hide valuables and keep them out of plain sight. That's just one of the advantages of hiding the subwoofer behind the dashboard and not having to stick it in the trunk area. Now, the next feature I want to talk about has to do with what Mercedes calls the MBUX system, which is essentially just the software of the infotainment screen. It's a really robust software. It does a really good job, and I want to show you a couple examples of that. So the first example is, hey Mercedes,
how can I help?
Turn off the massaging seats.
I'm switching off the massage for you.
So it just shut off the massaging seats by just me asking for it. Here's another example. Hey Mercedes,
how can I help?
I'm feeling cold.
I'm increasing the temperature to 76 degrees.
So just cool stuff like that. Now, it doesn't come without its glitches. There are some times where, I say, hey, Mercedes, it doesn't hear me, or sometimes where it continues to listen even though it's done the function. But for a car voice activation system, this has got to be one of the best out there. And there's even more functionality. It's kind of like a Google Home or Alexa assistant. For example, hey, Mercedes,
how may I help you?
What day is Father's Day?
Father's Day is Sunday, June 18th, 2023.
So I've only touched on the surface of everything that it can do, but it's a pretty robust system. And that is technically the fourth way you can control the infotainment screen, by just using your voice, and it works pretty well. The other thing I like about this infotainment screen is it makes it really easy to access your most commonly used functions. So for example, I use massage seats a lot. So instead of going through the comfort menu every single time I turn on the vehicle, I can actually just navigate to the comfort app, and down here, you'll see that button is already activated. So all I do is push that button, and it'll turn it on. You know, same with the off-road functionality. If I click the camera button, it will automatically show me my off-road camera function. So it's really easy to use and makes it very quick to access whatever you want to without having to actually hunt for exactly the setting that you use most often. You've also got a favorites button over here on the steering wheel that you can pre-program. Same with the favorites button over here near the center touchpad. So by pushing this button, you can quickly access your massaging seats if you program that button to do so. Now, the next cool feature has to do with the navigation system. Now, it's a pretty good navigation system overall. You saw it over here on the instrument gauge cluster. Here it is on the infotainment screen. Now, what I want to point out is the augmented reality system of this GPS. Now, what that is when you plug in a destination, this vehicle will actually show arrows on the screen as if they're floating in front of you. So I'm going to try to throw up some footage on the screen right now, but it'll use the front camera of the Mercedes to actually show you what's going on in front of you. And as you're approaching the intersection where you need to turn either left or right, it will actually flash an arrow showing you exactly which direction you need to go. So it's kind of like a Need for Speed or Midnight Club video game, if you guys have ever played that. And it really does look like there's an arrow floating right above you telling you where you need to go. Now, the next fun feature is not particular to Mercedes or this GLE, but it's still a pretty cool feature. If you pull up on this window switch, it will automatically raise or lower the rear sunshade, which is pretty cool because most of the cars have them manual nowadays. This has an automatic, and then if you're in the front seat, you can lower this rear side sunshade by pretty much using the exact same button. So by lowering it, you can lower this rear sunshade. So pretty cool feature for your rear seat occupants. Now, while we're back here, I do want to show off the fact that you do have your dual zone climate control in the second row seats. So you got heated seats over on the door panel, and then you've got your several different settings for your climate control. So everything from your feet to your head, whatever you like, and all the different temperatures and fan speed settings as well. Also, the second row is a perfect opportunity to take a look at the large panoramic sunroof. It does open about halfway down, and it's just a beautiful view to look up and outside into a gorgeous parking garage that I'm in today. All right, now this next feature will probably not surprise you for all of you that know I'm a sucker for cool lighting, and that has to do with the ambient lighting inside of this GLE. Now, this is probably up there as one of my favorite features, as silly as it is, but this interior cabin at night with this ambient lighting is gorgeous. And everybody who sat in this car when this light has been on has said the exact same thing. Now, not only is it beautiful in this blue color, but let's say you hate the color blue. Well, you can go over to your comfort settings, hit ambient light, and lucky for you, there are a multitude of different colors. For example, you can make the door handles and footwells one color and the light strip a different color. Or if you choose to, you can just pick one color overall. Let's say you want to go for like a pink theme. Well, you just adjust it, or purple, for example, and it lights up all over the cabin. Now, the other cool feature about this lighting, if you tap on the temperature, for example, it'll actually turn the left-hand side or right-hand side, depending on which side is being adjusted, to the color that you're adjusting the temperature to. So for example, if you're lowering the temperature, it's going to shine blue. If you're raising the temperature, it's going to shine red. And you've got the same story for the second row of seats. As I'm adjusting the temperature down, it's going to turn it blue even though the passenger side is green. And then as I turn it up, it's going to turn it red. I love that theme to it. I mean, kudos Mercedes, job well done. It's gorgeous. Now, staying on the theme of lighting, take a look at the floor as I open up the door. So first off, it shines with what looks to be a bunch of stripes. Then you take a look, it says AMG. Now you have the illuminated door seal, of course, but that is a cool shadow light touch. But as you turn off the vehicle and close the door, there's another light that shines. There's actually two lights, one underneath the side view mirror and one over here underneath the door with that AMG. Looks really cool. And I gotta say, the exterior lighting in general is just really pretty. I mean, these are the redesigned tail lamps over here for 2024 model year. They kind of got these cool looking triangles. And then on the front end, you also have redesigned facelifted headlights, which also look really cool. And let me show you the sweeping function they do when you turn the vehicle on. So take a look on the ground as I turn the vehicle on. You'll see the headlights do kind of like a sweeping function across the ground. That's a pretty cool touch from Mercedes. Now the next really cool feature has to do with the safety tech. So if I turn the cruise control on, here I am at 70 miles an hour, and let's say I want to change lanes. Well, I can actually just hit the blinker and this vehicle will automatically change lanes for me. I didn't actually touch the steering wheel and I just changed a lane. Also, the other cool thing about it is I don't have to consistently shake the steering wheel for it to keep lane centering on. All I need to do is actually just physically touch the steering wheel and this vehicle will know that I'm actually paying attention without having to consistently jiggle it for it to maintain its lane centering functionality. Now next up is a feature that's been on Mercedes for a very long time, but let's say you're approaching a stoplight and waiting in traffic, but you don't want to keep holding onto the brake pedal. Well, if you come to a complete stop and you actually just push in on the brake pedal, a little icon will show up on the screen saying hold, which means you can let go of the brake pedal and the car won't move. And then when you're ready to go, you just tap on the gas and the brakes will automatically let go. Well, there you have it, folks. That was over 25 fun, cool, interesting, quirky features about the 2024 Mercedes Benz AMG GLE 63S. Lots of cool functionality in this car. It comes at a hefty price tag at over $120,000, but you do get a sports car mixed with a luxury SUV, mixed with the practicality of a crossover. I mean, this is a lot of things in one package, and I've been very impressed with it. And on top of that, there's a lot of cool party tricks or features that you can show off to your friends and family and make them say, oh wow, yeah, this car is worth the cost. So there you have it. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for all of the weekly car videos. Also check me out on all the social media at Schwazy_. Until next time, everybody, I hope you stay Schwazy, stay healthy, have a wonderful day.